1490 WGCH, WGCH.com, anywhere. WGCH News Center time is 8:21, and joining me now in the Morning News Center is Greenwich Board of Education member Republican Peter Bernstein, who was not endorsed at the RTC meeting, the nominating meeting, and is now trying to petition his way onto the ballot, but as he'll report to us, meeting resistance. Peter, good morning. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Tony. Thanks for having me in.
Just move the microphone a little bit closer to you, and tell us how is the effort going so far?
We've encountered some issues, basically folks getting in our way and inhibiting our access to voters, which is really a challenge. We are out there talking to people, hopefully about issues related to education and unrelated to the shenanigans that have gone on.
All right, so you're saying you were not endorsed because you're against the charter change?
So we took a sense of the meeting vote at the Greenwich Board of Education about the charter change. The charter change is very difficult for people to explain, but basically it would give one party a majority. It doesn't change anything about voter choice. So the discussion of choice really isn't about choice. It's really about accountability to the party. We took a sense of the meeting vote, a non-binding vote, because it's not before the Board of Education. It's the selectmen who ultimately will decide where this goes. And we voted 6-2 against it. So 2 Republicans, 4 Democrats voted against it. And yet somehow here we are still talking about it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now you're trying to get 637 signatures. Your attorney filed an injunction. Tell us about that.
Sure. So as to the 637 signatures, they can only be registered Republicans, and they can only be collected by registered Republicans. So the bar is set very high for me. In terms of the injunction, I just want to note, I'm an attorney myself, but I didn't file this action. I actually hired outside counsel to do this for my campaign. As an officer of the court, I'm actually held to a higher standard. I'm duty-bound not to file frivolous actions. The action is basically to stop some of the behavior that we've experienced in the past couple of days. People physically intruding into our conversations with voters, people following us around with signs, conversations about us while we're talking to people, making it very, very difficult to connect with voters and basically inhibiting my free speech rights.
Okay, so now the judge turned down that injunction, or at least for now, right?
Well, the judge didn't turn down the injunction. We actually had asked for what's called an ex parte motion. I don't want to use heavy-duty legal words, but basically asking for immediate action on the motion. Instead, what the court ordered was a hearing. The clerk's office assigns the random hearing date, which in this case was later in August than when the petitions are due. My attorney will be working with the court today to try to get a more expedited hearing, given that the due date for all of these signatures is August 9th. Now, my focus is actually still on gathering signatures. I am in dire need of Republicans that are not just willing to sign, but willing to help collect signatures. I'd love it if people would contact me. I've actually got a Gmail address, if you don't mind if I give it out.
Sure, go ahead.
Just BernsteinBallot@gmail.com. Again, it's BernsteinBallot@gmail.com, where people can contact us, ask where we'll be, because at this point, that's my focus. I've got a lawyer. The lawyer will worry about the court date and the rest of that.
Now, you've asked for an extension also of that August 9th deadline, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, no offense to the people that are helping me collect signatures, but I am the candidate, right? I have the responsibility of collecting these signatures. I have been out there trying to do so, but being inhibited, in several respects. For instance, at Todd's Point on Sunday, I was told by the caretaker not to collect signatures because the folks on the other side who were trying to disrupt me basically were disrupting beachgoers, and he had several complaints, and he said in order to get them to stop, I could not collect signatures. That's a lost day. That's Greenwich residents, and I was not able to talk to, who basically will not have access to a candidate on the ballot if I do not get enough signatures.
Now, are you, at this pace, are you going to get the 637 by next Wednesday?
I really don't know, Tony. Basically, we've been set back a couple of days by these antics.
Are you, as a Republican, embarrassed by this for the party?
Oh, I absolutely am. I wish the RTC officers had taken a stronger stance about this. They issued a statement the other day, and while they condoned the behavior in very light words, they didn't talk about the tactics. They didn't call out the individuals who were responsible for this behavior. Quite frankly, this is not what we would expect from endorsed candidates. This is not what we would expect from anybody running for political office. And certainly it's not the example we want to set for our children. Just remember, these are people vying to become elected representatives on the Board of Education. We have a very strong anti-bullying policy in our school, and for good reason. And yet these are adults exhibiting the same behavior that we condone in our children.
Well, if what you're saying is true, it sounds like something that shouldn't be happening in this country, though.
Well, certainly it seems
in this time, in this era, if that's what you're saying is true.
Absolutely, and it's happening more and more, and it's quite sad and it's quite disappointing. The fact of the matter is that without my getting on the ballot, there's not going to be any debate. There's not going to be any discussion. Voters won't know anything about the people that are being elected to their Board of Education. And your listeners should know, we have a large budget. Our budget is an outsized portion of the entire budget of the town. What we do matters. Keeping our schools excellent, keeping our achievement high, asking more of our students, administrators, and teachers, that's important. It actually helps maintain the property values in Greenwich. Everybody complains that we're not number one on the state list. You know, we have some work to do, a lot of work to do. I feel that in the past 4 years, I've made a lot of progress, and the board has made a lot of progress in terms of where we are. We collect data now that we can use to figure out what programs work and what don't work. We've hired a new superintendent who, by the way, hold me accountable. I absolutely want to be held accountable for her success, but I need to be there to help support her to make sure that she's got the guardrails in place to make her successful and to keep a superintendent. If we cede the board to people who use these tactics, who don't want to talk about the issues, who just want to be on by fiat, that's not good for anyone.
You mentioned you mentioned Greenwich Point. You also mentioned, I think, that on Monday at Riverside train station. How do they know that you're there? So
I actually had sent out an email to people. I've been collecting signatures for years in town. I've been in town for about 14 years myself. Signatures through my last campaign, and sent out an email blast letting people know where I was. Quite frankly, this was the playbook 4 years ago when candidates were petitioning their way on the ballot. No one inhibited those candidates, by the way, 4 years ago. But they wanted to let people know where they were so that you could collect signatures in bunches of people as opposed to knocking on doors, which, by the way, we're going to resort to and we have been doing because that is the most direct way to get to voters without people intruding on our rights.
Mm-hmm. Final question. Do you feel like you're a good law Republican?
I do. I honestly do. I'm relatively conservative with our money. We have a very generous budget from the town, and we need to make sure that money is well spent, that we're getting the most for it. You know, the expectation that our budget is going to go up 3 or 4% every year just isn't possible in these economic times, so we need to do more for less. And honestly, I think that I've been a leader in what we do in the budget every year. Last year, the Board of Education submitted a combined 212 questions to the administration in writing about the budget. That doesn't count all of the discussion and hours we put into poring over the budget book, questions we've asked at public meetings, and the such. We really do take this seriously. At least I know I personally do, and I believe most of my fellow board members do. This is a responsibility to the town, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, an unaffiliated voter. The schools are very, very important to Greenwich, very, very important to how the world outside of Greenwich views us. And it's something that I think everybody should be concerned about.
All right, great. Peter, thanks very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
All right, that's Peter Bernstein, member of the Greenwich Board of Education. WGCH News Center time is 8:29.